Chapter 2632. Not only was Chu Yang severely injured, but he was also on the verge of losing himself and completely submitting to the Jin Emperor. However, he was prepared for this. He had experienced this in the 9 reincarnations, so he was not unfamiliar with it at all. He was not in awe and could deal with it easily. Just now, he was half acting and he was still acting. Bang! 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 On his body, a series of explosions occurred along his skeleton. Bloody holes were blasted open one after another. The explosions caused his flesh and blood to splatter everywhere. His body was in tatters, and he trembled incessantly. He withstood all of this. In the end, he still didn't let go of Huangfu Wuji. He was still choking Huangfu Wuji's neck. He still didn't fall down. Blood flowed all over the ground. His whole body was covered in blood and even his face was dyed red. Although I've already experienced all this in my 9 reincarnations, and my soul has long adapted to it, my body has never truly experienced it. What I've shown is just right. He shouldn't have been able to see anything. At this moment, Chu Yang was also pondering in his mind. This was the first time he met the Jin Emperor and felt the Jin Emperor's majesty. If his performance was unreasonable and showed his strangeness, the Jin Emperor would suspect him. Therefore, he had always been worried about this. But now, he found that everything was very simple and easy. Haha. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. Old Jin Emperor, this is not enough. You can't kill me or save your son. But it seems that I have a chance to bury you with him. This guy was crazy. When the ghost in the dark heard Chu Yang's words, he was completely stunned. He found it hard to believe that Chu Yang dared to talk to the Jin Emperor like this. What was this if not crazy? Chu Yang. It's me. You've really surprised me. The voice no longer came from the sky and was no longer emotionless like the Heaven Duke's voice. It suddenly appeared in front of Chu Yang and drilled into his ears. The voice also contained great surprise. At this moment, a tall figure appeared in front of him. Tall, very tall, almost 3 meters tall. Big, very big. This person's skeleton was huge, 5 or 6 times larger than those burly people. This person looked like a giant, but he was not human at all. There was a strange power and aura on his body that made people feel that he was not the same kind. Only Chu Yang could feel this feeling because others couldn't feel it as deeply as him. Even now, he still couldn't figure out why the Jin Emperor's body was so strange. Of course, this person was the Jin Emperor. Outside of this, the Emperor didn't seem to be any different from other people. The only difference was that his face was much bigger than others. Perhaps because of this, it was hard to tell that the Emperor was handsome with such a large face. At this moment, the Emperor finally appeared in front of Chu Yang. This time, he was no longer in the cycle of reincarnation. Even if he failed, he could try again. Thus, when he saw this familiar face, he couldn't help but have a strange feeling. That strange feeling might be due to nervousness, or it might be due to the switch between reality and illusion, or it might be due to the great pressure he was under. If he were to lose this time, he would be completely defeated, and he would not have any more chances. This is my last chance. Secretly, Chu Yang's left hand suddenly clenched tightly. The Jin Emperor was also looking at Chu Yang. Chapter 2633. In the current era, perhaps only Chu Yang could calmly face the Jin Emperor's gaze. Only Chu Yang could do so. Otherwise, if it were anyone else, they would have been reduced to ashes by now, with nothing left behind. You're not bad. The Emperor finally spoke. I'll give you a chance. The Emperor placed his hands behind his back and slightly lowered his head. Follow me. Follow the Emperor? What a great fortune this was. What a great honor this was. Who knew how many people would wish for it but couldn't? But, this person was Chu Yang. Haha. Chu Yang laughed. Your Majesty, you think I'll be a dog? Follow me, not a dog. After hearing this, Gui and the others who followed Huangfu Wuji were shocked. They weren't even the Jin Emperor's dogs, yet the Jin Emperor gave Chu Yang such high treatment. Even after Chu Yang contradicted him, the Jin Emperor didn't become angry at all and even gave an explanation. Unimaginable, simply unimaginable. Who else could be so valued by the Emperor? Haha. Chu Yang laughed again and looked up at the Jin Emperor. Jin Emperor, how about following me? Chu Yang used the same posture and tone as the Jin Emperor and spoke in a condescending manner. The world suddenly froze. Ghost and the others in the dark were horrified and couldn't help but reveal themselves. They seemed to be frightened to death. The Emperor's eyes turned cold. In the blink of an eye, time and space began to reverse. Everything wanted to go back to the past before Huangfu Wuji was choked by Chu Yang. A great space-time power instantly fell on Chu Yang's body. He couldn't control his body and was about to be sucked into space-time and pulled to another time period. But he quickly stabilized himself. He was like a reef in the sea. No matter how the space-time power hit him, he didn't move an inch. Your Majesty, I've already suffered this in the 9 reincarnations, yet you still want to succeed. He sneered in his mind. However, only he knew that he had learned a painful lesson because of this. Even though those scenes had happened in reincarnation, they were still bloody when he recalled them now. In fact, he could still feel the pain at this moment. The power of fate. The space-time power suddenly came to a halt without any warning. The Emperor's voice came again, "You are the child of fate." He instantly knew the power in Chu Yang's body. In fact, he instantly understood everything about Chu Yang. Haha. Chu Yang laughed again. "Your Majesty, I'm the child of fate. It's not too much to ask for you to be buried with me." The Emperor narrowed his eyes for the first time. "Even if you are the child of fate, it's impossible for you to use the passage to kill me." "Is that so? Then I'll give it a try." Chu Yang raised his hand and threw Huangfu Wuji in the direction of the tomb. He then rushed towards the tomb as well. However, with a single thought from the Emperor, time and space came to a standstill. This was the case even at the entrance of the tomb. Time and space were completely under the Emperor's control. Chu Yang and Huangfu Wuji were both frozen in space. "Child of fate, I told you before that even if you are the child of fate, it's impossible for you to use the passage to kill me. What do you think now?" As he spoke, with a thought, Huangfu Wuji removed himself from the frozen world and directly flew back. However, at this moment, the ground beneath his feet suddenly vanished silently, revealing a huge black hole. Chapter 2634. Not good. The Jin Emperor's expression greatly changed. His huge eyes trembled as the entrance to the tomb quietly appeared beneath his feet. Haha. Chu Yang, who was in a state of stillness, suddenly broke out of his stillness. He laughed and said, "Jin Emperor, did you only realize it now?" Buzz. As Chu Yang laughed, his movements did not stop at all. Illusory worlds appeared one after another behind him. One of the illusory worlds represented an era that had been destroyed. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 epochs appeared: Confucian Epoch, Immortal Epoch, Sword Epoch, Saber Epoch, Buddha Epoch. Where did you get so many epochs? The Emperor's voice was full of anger. He was actually tricked by an ant. "Because I'm the child of fate, haha." Chu Yang ridiculed, "Jin Emperor, I'm the child of destiny. You couldn't pull me back with your space-time power, so how can you imprison me with your space-time power? Are you stupid?" Haha. He was too happy and thought that the Emperor was nothing more than this. Earlier, he only used the momentary pause to reveal the various epochs in his body. However, the Emperor didn't notice it, so he succeeded. As for why the passageway to the Great Necropolis had suddenly expanded, it was naturally because of the eras that had been destroyed. The Great Necropolis was the end of everything, and any eras that had been destroyed would naturally be absorbed into the Great Necropolis. Now that so many eras had suddenly appeared, the Great Necropolis naturally reacted. However, Chu Yang was the only one who could scheme against the Jin Emperor because the Emperor couldn't see through Chu Yang's thoughts. If it was someone else, let alone scheming, the Emperor would know exactly what they were thinking. However, Chu Yang's joy was short-lived. He couldn't even fully laugh before it was swallowed up. Moreover, he didn't have the strength to resist at all. The power coming from the tomb was too frightening. This was the first time he regretted entering the tomb. The tomb was far more frightening than he imagined. The ghosts who were responsible for protecting and following Huangfu Wuji were also silently swallowed by the tomb. They couldn't resist at all. Second body, save Huangfu Wuji, fell a bit later because of the Emperor. Nevertheless, the Emperor couldn't save him in the end. Before he could even finish calling for help, he was swallowed up by the great necropolis. Whether it was Chu Yang or anyone else, they were devoured by the great necropolis without the slightest bit of resistance. Damn it! Whoosh! The emperor couldn't stop the devouring force of the tomb and fell straight down. However, he was the only one who made a sound as if he was the only one with weight. Rumble. The world trembled. The Jin emperor, who had just disappeared into the tomb, suddenly reappeared. In the blink of an eye, he was as tall as the sky. The entire central continent and heavenly spirit world could see him clearly, shocking the entire world. Alas, this didn't work. Though the emperor was no longer falling, he still couldn't get out of the tomb. Even if a pair of gigantic hands appeared in the sky and tried to pull him out, it still wouldn't work. In the end, he decisively cut himself in half. Only then was the gigantic hand of heaven able to pull him out of the great tomb and disappear without a trace. This period of time was extremely short, but a great change had taken place. The heavens collapsed and the earth was destroyed. The entire heavenly spirit world was shaken. Thunder rumbled in every space and time above the firmament. Blood rain fell from the sky, and the world was dyed red. Heavenly spirit world was changing everywhere as if the end of the world was coming. Chapter 26:35. Darkness. He could sense the deathly grey darkness. Deathly stillness. It seemed to be a temporary deathly stillness that would soon be broken by a sound. This was what Chu Yang felt when he first fell into the great tomb. At first, it didn't feel too bad, and he could still struggle a little, but this feeling soon disappeared. Darkness, it became endless darkness. Not to mention deathly grey, he couldn't even sense the darkness anymore. Deathly stillness, it was no longer just deathly stillness, because not only was there no sound, everything was no longer there. Even the darkness didn't exist, there was nothing, there didn't even seem to be anything. At this moment, he didn't even know if he had entered the great tomb, or if he was at the edge of the great tomb. Following that, his various senses also quickly disappeared. Sight, touch, hearing, smell, taste. The first thing to disappear was his physical body. His flesh shell didn't seem to be a real existence, it seemed to be a drawing on a blackboard. With a gentle rub, his flesh shell began to disappear. There was no pain, no feeling, it just disappeared. It was the same with his memories. They were gently erased. Chu Yang felt as if his entire person and everything related to himself had completely disappeared within a short period of time. So this is the great tomb, it's so terrifying. I don't feel any death, but it's 10,000 times more terrifying than death. This was his last consciousness. His consciousness had disappeared, completely disappeared. With his consciousness gone, he naturally couldn't think or feel anything, it was as if he had never existed. Everything was strange and abrupt, a living person was gone just like that. But after an unknown period of time, Chu Yang faintly regained a faint trace of consciousness. In the process of recovering this trace of consciousness, he felt as if he had gone from a non-living substance to a living substance after an extremely long period of time. It was like the origin of life. In the primitive sea, he was just a simple organic substance that constantly reacted, and then after an extremely long period of time, he gradually became a primitive life form. After that, the primitive life form continued to evolve, becoming a primitive human, becoming a clan member, and finally becoming a human again. In this process, he seemed to have not only experienced the origin of life, but also the entire process of life evolving into a human. At this time, his consciousness had completely recovered, and he found that his consciousness was completely attached to the divine cauldron. Other than the divine cauldron, he could not sense anything else. It seemed that other than the divine cauldron, there was nothing else. There was no darkness, no space, no time, and no dust. There was nothing. Am I in the great tomb? Is this how it is in the great tomb? Everything is non-existent. The divine cauldron can stop the great tomb, but can it save you? Chu Yang couldn't help but have countless thoughts in his mind. Everything was unknown and unsolvable. In addition to endless doubts, there were still endless doubts in his mind. As this situation continued, facing the endless nothingness, he could only rely on his own memories to recall or think about countless things to kill time. Time was too long, as if it would never end. Very soon, he focused all his energy on cultivation. The heavenly spirit world's martial system, the martial arts system of the gods, the immortal epoch, the Confucian epoch, the shaman epoch, the various epochs. Chapter 2636. In the end, the martial way could no longer allow him to waste time and forget the existence of time. However, he had nothing better to do. He could only start studying the martial way again and again. Again and again, every time he repeated, he would count, but in the end, he didn't even know how many times he had repeated it. In the end, the martial way finally lost its effect. He was almost unable to resist such nothingness, and his consciousness began to slowly disappear bit by bit. Perhaps there was a person who could live in isolation from the world, but there was no analogy to his situation. In the entire world, other than himself, nothing existed, nothing existed. What kind of terror was that? No, there is nothing, 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 there is nothing. That's not right. There is still the divine cauldron. The divine cauldron was Chu Yang's life-saving straw. It was his only hope. It was the reason why he had persevered. From the very beginning, he had been studying the divine cauldron crazily, trying to understand something from the divine cauldron. However, he couldn't understand anything at all. As for the divine cauldron, he had been using it to kill time. As his consciousness slowly disappeared, the divine cauldron also slowly disappeared. He did not struggle, nor did he struggle. Instead, he prayed that his consciousness would disappear quickly. To him, this was a form of relief. He really couldn't hold on any longer. However, when his consciousness completely disappeared, he actually regained consciousness once again. However, it felt very strange, as if his consciousness no longer existed, and had also become nothingness. In this state, in the state of nothingness, he could no longer feel any pain, because his own body, his own consciousness, was also nothingness. It did not exist, and it was also nothingness. He did not exist, so how could there be any pain? At this time, he finally realized that the divine cauldron was also nothingness. It did not exist at all, and it was also nothingness. Nothingness, is this the secret of the divine cauldron? In the midst of nothingness, Chu Yang suddenly had such a thought. The divine cauldron suddenly became real, but after a tremble, it became nothingness again, and then completely disappeared. During this process, Chu Yang's state changed along with the divine cauldron, and completely disappeared along with it. This time, the disappearance was short, and completely different from the others. When Chu Yang returned to the state of existence and recovered his senses, he suddenly realized that he was in an endless dark universe. In front of him, there were two people who seemed to be glued to him and were emitting light. I'm finally out of the tomb, Chu Yang shuddered with excitement. However, all of this disappeared in the blink of an eye. After such a long time, the heavenly spirit world and the gods' world should have turned into dust while the Jin Emperor should be deader than dead. Those people from the past, those things from the past, I'm afraid they've already vanished into thin air. He couldn't resist the sudden surge of sadness in his heart. He entered the nothingness state and slowly adjusted himself. After a long time, he once again looked at the only source of light in front of him, the two people who were stuck together. The two people who were stuck together had their own heads and limbs. However, parts of their bodies were stuck together and even overlapped. It was as if they shared the same heart or even multiple organs. It looks like a deformed person, but in fact, it's just a strangely shaped world. Chu Yang soon saw the situation clearly. In this strangely shaped world, there seemed to be two worlds superimposed on each other, and there was another world in the superimposed part. Three worlds fused together. What kind of world is this? Why is it so strangely shaped, like a deformed person? Chapter 2637. At the center of the world, Chu Yang saw an illusory divine cauldron that looked exactly like the one inside his body. Using the illusory divine cauldron as a starting point, he found the medicinal wine bottle that used the four sovereigns azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise to brew medicinal wine. During his trip to the god's world, Chu Yang entered the medicinal wine bottle from the starting ground, then entered the forbidden world. Under the arrangements of the infinite dominator and Bing, he seized the divine cauldron. After the divine cauldron was seized, an illusory divine cauldron was built in the forbidden world to replace it. If that's the forbidden world, then the two worlds on its left and right should be the heavenly spirit world and the God's world. Chu Yang couldn't help but tremble. His mind was in a daze. After such a long time, the heavenly spirit world and the God's world still existed. Could it be that the long time I sensed was just a short period of time for the heavenly spirit world and the God's world? The moment this thought appeared in his mind, he immediately turned his gaze to the heavenly spirit world and looked at the eastern wilderness. Soon, he saw a bustling crowd. It was the prosperous eastern wilderness, and his big brother Chu Fei was the ruler of the eastern wilderness, ruling over the entire eastern wilderness. His parents, his big sister Chu Na, his second brother Qin Yin, his junior brother Silver Wolf, Little Guari, the Parrot, Little Five, and Little Six were all there. Whoosh! Chu Yang was a little afraid that everything he saw would disappear. His gaze immediately swept from the eastern wilderness to the east continent, and when his gaze landed on the east continent, he immediately felt a faint connection. At the same time, in the Sky Academy of the east continent, the sound of a bell rang out, shaking the entire east continent. The demonic bell, the emperor weapon Chu Yang obtained from the Seven Wheels demonic realm. At this moment, Chu Yang was finally sure that everything was real. He didn't miss out on any of this. The so-called endless time only existed in the Great Tomb for him. After that, his gaze shifted from the East State to the Central State. He looked at the Taijing city of the Central State and immediately saw a huge hole with endless grey qi surging inside. At this moment, there were many people gathered at the edge of the cave. Among them were Rui Zi, the pretty boy Wei Xian, Xia Wanjin, Liu Yunpeng, the remaining 5 young masters of Taijing City, Wu Chou, Kong Jingsha, Qin Guo, and the others. In the end, Chu Yang's gaze fell on a lonely and sorrowful figure, Xiaoxiong talented female teacher Dan Feng. Sigh, I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect that the god of traps would die in the biggest trap. At least he died in the right place. Is there anything in the world that's bigger and deeper than the Great Tomb? I'm afraid that only such a trap could trap a god of traps like him to death. If a trap like the Great Necropolis can't kill this trickster god, then no one in this world can. He's going to be invincible and lonely like the snow. Separated by time and space, Chu Yang was in the dark universe. With his powerful cultivation, he could clearly hear the discussions around the cave. He could even hear some people whispering. Chu Yang is truly amazing. I heard that the Jin Emperor was almost killed by him the day before yesterday. During the heaven change, the Jin Emperor of Central State revealed his true form and was as tall as the sky. In the end, he had no choice but to abandon the lower half of his body. I heard that it was all because of the divine fragrance talented girl. That's why this trickster god Chu Yang wanted to kill the Jin Emperor. I also heard that the reason why Chu Yang divorced the divine fragrance talented girl was because the first prince forced him to do so. Once the divine fragrance talented girl died, he immediately exploded. Not only did he want to kill the first prince, but he also wanted to kill the Jin Emperor. Among the whispers, Chu Yang heard the most exciting thing: the day before yesterday. He killed the Jin Emperor the day before yesterday. In this case, it only took him 1 day to enter the Great Tomb and come out. Chapter 2638. The Great Necropolis, an unimaginable great necropolis. Chu Yang slowly calmed down. Everything miraculous was attributed to the Great Necropolis, and only in a place like the Great Necropolis could something like this happen. What did you experience in the Great Necropolis? Suddenly, a voice came from the endless darkness of the universe, scaring Chu Yang half to death. Who is it? He turned around, but there was nothing behind him. The Great Necropolis did not exist behind him. The Great Necropolis, the end of everything, did not appear in the world. There is no need to be afraid. You will know who I am when you see me. The voice came again, and then a beam of light shot out from the endless darkness of the universe. After a while, he saw that it was a person, and a hunchbacked old man who had lost all his teeth and hair. The old man's entire body glowed, especially his lower abdomen, where the light burned brightly. And in the depths of the light, the 100-layered heavens appeared. Infinite Dominator. When he saw the 100-layered heavens, Chu Yang's 3D paradise coordinates trembled slightly. He could not help but blurt out, instantly understanding the old man's meaning. How could Chu Yang not know about the Infinite Dominator? He had entered the God world from the heavenly spirit realm, and used the lightning tribulation to blow up the God world's world barrier, inexplicably forming the 100-layered heavens. Then, in the forbidden world, under the arrangements of the Infinite Dominator and Bing, he had stolen the divine cauldron. The Infinite Dominator was deeply connected to him. But he never imagined that at this time, in this place, he would see the Infinite Dominator so unexpectedly. His heart was filled with countless doubt. I am the Infinite Dominator. The old man had already arrived in front of Chu Yang. At this time, Chu Yang could see him even more clearly. The Infinite Dominator did not even have eyebrows, but there was not a single wrinkle on his face, which was incomparably smooth. You don't need to ask me, I will naturally tell you everything in a moment. What is your current realm? Upon seeing Chu Yang, the Infinite Dominator's smooth face immediately glowed with light. That light was very strange, as if it was the light of hope. He seemed to know what Chu Yang was thinking, but he seemed to be more urgent, so Chu Yang could only hold back. When he thought of the Infinite Lord's question, he frowned slightly and said, I don't know what realm I'm at right now. How long have you been in the Great Tomb? The old man asked again. Chu Yang fell into deep thought again. Maybe it's hundreds of millions of years, maybe it's even longer. It's so long that it's hard to imagine, but maybe it's only one day. I'm not sure. It was like he didn't know anything. The old man's smooth brows furrowed. Show me your highest realm. In an instant, Chu Yang was in a dilemma. He hesitated. He was not familiar with the Infinite Dominator, and it would not be wise for him to expose his secret. However, he followed his instincts and did as he was told. In an instant, he vanished into thin air without a trace. Was this Chu Yang's highest realm? The Infinite Dominator's old eyes widened like those of an ox. He was extremely astonished, and then a look of extreme shock appeared on his face. He actually could not sense Chu Yang's existence. It was as if Chu Yang had not vanished, but had never existed. Whether it was in space-time or in fate, there was not a single trace of Chu Yang. What realm is this? The Infinite Dominator was unable to determine, so he asked directly. I don't know either. Perhaps it's called Nothing. Chu Yang's figure appeared once more. Nothing. Chapter 2639. After a pause, he hurriedly added, Nothing means that you don't exist. And if you don't exist, you can't be killed or defeated. If that's the case, even if you can't win against those beasts, you definitely won't lose. Chu Yang was shocked by what the Infinite Dominator had said. Nothingness was such an understanding that he was instantly enlightened. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind, but the Infinite Dominator's voice jolted him back to reality. Do you think the Heavenly Soul World and Myriad God World were originally deformed worlds? This question left Chu Yang dumbfounded. How could he possibly know? Can you imagine? There were once 3,000 worlds in this universe, but now, only the Heavenly Soul World and Myriad God World remain. The Infinite Sovereign's withered arm suddenly pointed at the dark and empty universe in front of him. Chu Yang couldn't help but be shocked. There were once 3,000 worlds here. Of those, 2,998 were swallowed up by the deformed world. Now, only the Heavenly Soul World and Myriad God World remain, and the Heavenly Soul World and Myriad God World are on the verge of collapse. Chu Yang was shocked. As for the so-called deformed world, he could confirm without a doubt from the Infinite Sovereign's gaze. The forbidden world between the Heavenly Soul World and Myriad God World was the deformed world the Infinite Sovereign spoke of. But he still had questions. Senior, before this junior entered the Great Tomb, he clearly felt the Heavenly Soul World's heavenly Tao grow stronger. How could it be swallowed up? That's because the divine cauldron was stolen by you. Chu Yang felt as if he had been hit by a stick. He was stunned again. He was even more confused now. Isn't there a great connection between these two things? The Infinite Sovereign was very clear about Chu Yang's doubts. He immediately explained, the deformed world. What is deformed? It is precisely because they are deformed that they can only survive by swallowing other worlds. In other words, the deformed world has fatal flaws, but the divine cauldron allows them to ignore these flaws. The divine cauldron, nothingness. The mystery of the divine cauldron was woo-woo. Under the effect of woo-woo, the fatal flaw was equivalent to not having any. From this, it seemed to be logical. As Chu Yang listened, he speculated. All of a sudden, he realized that the secrets of the essence of the great necropolis were different from the divine cauldron. He had only comprehended the profundities of the divine cauldron in an environment like the great necropolis. But he didn't say anything. All he did was quietly listen to the infinite sovereign's explanation. After the divine cauldron was stolen by us, many huge creatures or extremely small creatures in the deformed realm were almost wiped out in an instant, leaving only their final existences, the worm. And because there are no longer these deformed creatures devouring the heavenly soul world and God world's essence, the heavenly soul world and God world's essence will naturally grow stronger. The heavenly soul realm and the God's realm were still in the process of growth, but the reason why the two realms were stagnant was because the deformed worlds had swallowed up their origins. Chu Yang seemed to have a general understanding of the situation, but he was still puzzled. Senior, according to what you said, the speed at which the deformed worlds devoured their origins shouldn't be too excessive. How could they have swallowed all 3,000 worlds in one go, leaving only the heavenly soul world and the God's realm? Mph, they wanted to devour so many worlds. Do you think they had it easy? The infinite sovereign couldn't help but coldly snort. During this process, the creatures in the deformed realm were nearly wiped out, and they became extremely weak. Moreover, their fatal flaw was infinitely magnified. Otherwise, how could the heavenly soul world and the God's realm still exist? Senior is saying that because the deformed realm was heavily damaged, the heavenly soul world and the God's realm were able to linger on until now? At this moment, Chu Yang could faintly see the tragic battle of the universe. But what kind of existences were the creatures in the deformed realm? How could they be so strong? Generally speaking, Senior, if the divine cauldron is so important to the deformed realm, why was it so easily stolen by us? This was also the biggest question in Chu Yang's mind. He had obtained the divine cauldron too easily. Chapter 2640. Chu Yang was shocked. What do you mean? Does the infinite dominator know about my transmigrated identity? This was too shocking. His biggest secret had actually been exposed. Moreover, he could tell that the reason he had transmigrated seemed to be because the universe he was in had sent him to support this universe. But was that possible? He was just an ant. How could he be so powerful as to save another universe? You don't have to doubt. Although you are small, you have the luck of another universe, like an adopted child. Because of this, you don't belong to this universe, so you aren't in the space-time of this universe, nor are you in the destiny of this universe. Therefore, they can't sense your existence. Therefore, it can be said that the deformed realm can't sense your existence. Of course, it's only when you are weak that you are invisible to them. That's why you were able to steal the divine cauldron under our arrangement. There was no need for Chu Yang to ask. The infinite dominator had explained everything thoroughly. However, Chu Yang didn't understand. Since he didn't belong to this space-time and wasn't in this space-time, and he was invisible, then why could others see him? This was very strange and completely illogical. Moreover, if this was the case, then what was he? Chu Yang asked directly, Senior, since I'm invisible, why can't the deformed realm see me, but others can? That's very simple. The infinite dominator said straightforwardly, because the will of this universe acted on you when you entered the deformed realm, activating the attributes of your other universe, causing you to be invisible. And only at that moment, you were almost invisible. It's so complicated. Anyway, I don't understand. Chu Yang's head hurt a little. He couldn't understand the principle at all, nor could he figure it out. Actually, I don't really understand either. The infinite dominator finally said, you just have to remember one thing. You are the adopted son of another universe, the son of this universe. And your mission is to save your family and be the master of your family. That doesn't seem easy. Chu Yang could only smile bitterly. What else could he say? To be more precise, he suddenly knew so many shocking secrets. His mind was completely muddled, and he didn't know what to do. Not easy. The Eternal Dominator suddenly laughed, causing Chu Yang to stare blankly for a moment. This was because, ever since the Infinite Dominator had appeared, his face had been completely devoid of wrinkles and was incomparably smooth. But now, he was actually smiling. After chuckling, the Eternal Ruler teased, "Kid, do you still want to know where your woman is?" "My woman?" Chu Yang was stunned at first, but then his head exploded. He immediately became extremely excited. His eyes shone with a piercing light as he hurriedly asked, "Senior, are you saying that Lan Lan isn't dead? Where is she right now?" In his excitement, he reached out and grabbed the Eternal Sovereign, the old man whose hair and teeth had all fallen out of his mouth. In fact, he even lifted him off the ground. Shangguan Lan actually didn't die after falling into the Great Tomb. Chu Yang had never expected this. He was overjoyed. The Great Tomb was so astonishing and terrifying that if he didn't have the Divine Cauldron, he wouldn't have been able to get out. But even so, he had stayed inside for hundreds of millions of years and suffered endless torment. Therefore, even though he had hoped that Shangguan Lan was still alive, after experiencing the horror of the Great Tomb, that glimmer of hope was completely extinguished. It was simply impossible. Chapter 2641. Like a beam of light, Chu Yang instantly arrived at the edge of the deformed realm. As soon as he exerted his strength, the entire universe suddenly shone brightly. The 2,998 worlds that were once devoured appeared and entered Chu Yang's body. At the same time, a great light shot out from the depths of the universe and landed behind him. At this moment, the entire universe seemed to be his body, and he himself seemed to be a big hand of the universe. Endless power filled his body. At this moment, the space-time was like a net containing a basketball to him. When he used the space-time force of the universe to wrap the deformed realm, it was really like holding a net containing a basketball. As soon as it was wrapped, he directly disappeared into thin air. It was easy to the extreme. Everything was far easier than he had imagined. Chu Yang even had a feeling that he was like bringing a basketball to a court to play basketball. The moment he disappeared into thin air, because of his thoughts, the universe had already revealed the Great Tomb. He directly teleported into the Great Tomb, then threw the deformed realm into the Great Tomb, and immediately teleported out again. Everything was going so smoothly that it couldn't be any smoother. Waha, this marshal is really a genius. As soon as Chu Yang succeeded, it was as if he had removed a stone from his heart. The pressure was gone, and his whole body felt relaxed. It was as if there was nothing around him, and his whole body was light as a feather. He couldn't help but laugh loudly in the universe with his hands on his hips. He was extremely proud. Rumble. Immediately after, because of the disappearance of the deformed realm, the universe shook again. Instantly, from the heavenly soul world and the God's world, two figures flew out and arrived in front of Chu Yang in the blink of an eye. One of them was the Jin Emperor of the heavenly soul world. He was more than 3 meters tall and extremely huge. The other one didn't look like much at first. His figure was also ordinary, but when he arrived in front of Chu Yang, his body instantly grew infinitely, as if he was as tall as the sky, as tall as the universe, and even the entire universe couldn't bear his weight, the supreme ruler of the God's world. Originally, Chu Yang thought that this was the Jin Emperor's original body, but from the Ice Kuan, he learned that there was another insect, and this insect was the ultimate existence of their entire deformed world. The supreme ruler of the God's world was also much more powerful than Chu Yang had imagined. However, the two of them didn't rush into the Great Tomb to rescue the deformed world as he and the Ice Kuan had expected. They didn't rush into the Great Tomb to rescue the deformed world or kill him immediately. They stood in front of Chu Yang, and they didn't seem to have any intention of attacking him. They merely stared coldly at Chu Yang, and their eyes were filled with disdain. This was especially true for the highest ruler of the God realm. He was so tall that it was impossible to tell how tall he was. His 2 huge eyes looked like 2 stars. "Son of the universe, nice to meet you." The 2 emperors didn't speak, but a voice suddenly came from between them. Chu Yang was startled, but he couldn't see anything when he tried to find the source of the voice. Then, his pupils shook violently. He saw an extremely tiny insect, almost as small as a speck of dust. He couldn't see it with his eyes, so he could only rely on his divine perception. At this moment, this extremely tiny insect was glowing. It was completely revealed. Its body was slender and soft. Its head was small. Its antennae were short and bristly. Its compound eyes were well developed. It had 2 pairs of triangular wings. It was fragile and membranous. Its front wings were large and its hind wings were small. Mayfly. In an instant, Chu Yang knew how to describe this insect, a mayfly that lives in the morning and dies in the evening. Chapter 2642. Your insect. Chu Yang's voice was solemn. He sensed that the opponent was too calm. I am Insect. Insect said, aren't you surprised, child of the universe? Chu Yang's eyes narrowed. You think I'm surprised? You should know that you've lost. You're just a mayfly. A mayfly? Insect sneered. So what if I'm a mayfly? Can there be different nobility in this universe? You think you can be proud just because you're a human? You'll only be food in my mouth later. Shameless boasting. Chu Yang felt even more uneasy, but he didn't admit defeat. I'm the child of the universe, the master of this part of the universe. This universe is my support, yet you dare to act so presumptuously in this place. Then I'll show you how presumptuous I am. As soon as Chong's words fell, the Jin Emperor and the supreme ruler of the divine world moved. Both of them flicked their fingers, and a black light beam shot straight at Chu Yang. The black beam of light pierced through the universe. It even had a different kind of aura. It was completely different from this universe. It was like the aura of another universe. The moment it entered Chu Yang's eyes, the image of a universe being devoured by countless insects appeared in his mind. Some were as big as the universe while others were as small as specks of dust. They came in all shapes and sizes and devoured a universe in the blink of an eye. He couldn't move at all, as if the weight of the universe was pressing down on him. It was as if countless insects had landed on him and were madly gnawing away at him. 2 black beams of light easily pierced through his body. Instantly, he disappeared without a trace. The Emperor and the Overlord of the Gods didn't attack again. They just stared at Chu Yang's original position, and Insect did the same. They remained motionless as if they really believed that Chu Yang was dead but didn't rescue the deformed world. It seemed that all 3 of them were dead at this moment. What happened? Of course, Chu Yang didn't die. He transformed into nothingness and disappeared. After that, he reappeared at the border of the heavenly soul world and the God's world, trying to absorb the 2 worlds into his body. However, the other party's reaction made him feel very strange. Under the state of nothingness, everything was very easy, and Chu Yang succeeded very quickly. However, he was even more confused, but he couldn't care too much because he had to take care of the living beings of the heavenly soul world and the myriad God's world. Otherwise, who knew what would happen if a real battle broke out? Let's not talk about that for now. Let's take Lanlan's world first. Then, we'll see what the other party is made of. He forcibly suppressed the doubts in his heart and flew to where Shangguan Lan was. At this time, he suddenly realized that Chong and the other 2 had followed closely behind him. His heart skipped a beat. What on earth is going on? He was sure that the other party was definitely scheming something, and was definitely not fooled by his lawless state. But at this time, he had no way out. He quickly absorbed the world that Shangguan Lan had transformed into his body. Child of the universe, thank you for letting me observe the mysteries of nothingness. As soon as Insect's voice drilled into Chu Yang's ears, Chu Yang was almost dumbfounded. He couldn't help but blurt out, so that's your purpose. What do you think? Insect sneered, I'm only 1 step away from comprehending the mysteries of nothingness. Once I comprehend it, how can life and death exist? If the body didn't exist, then naturally there would be no life and death. Insect would certainly have a great comprehension and his strength would be even more amazing. You've succeeded. You can make your move now. Chu Yang's heart sank completely. From the beginning of this battle, he had completely fallen into the opponent's rhythm. Chapter 2643. However, child of the universe, in your words, I must express my gratitude to you. Thank you for placing my world in the great tomb of this universe. Buggy said. What? Chu Yang was so shocked that his mind almost collapsed. His plan was exactly what the other wanted. I don't understand. He really did. Haha. The insect was very proud and even mocked. Child of the universe, the great tomb is the key to every universe. Entering it is the same as entering the depths of the universe. Originally, I didn't have the ability to enter. Even if I devoured all the worlds in this universe, I still wouldn't be able to do anything to this universe. But now, it's different. As he spoke, Chong's tone became playful. I've devoured a universe like this before, and the method I used was almost the same as now. And you, like the previous child of the universe, are a complete idiot. It immediately corrected, no, you're a bit better than that idiot. After all, you comprehended the mysteries of the divine cauldron, and in the process of collecting the cauldron, the world of gods, and your woman's world, I observed it 3 times and understood even more. Haha. Before he finished, he couldn't help but laugh crazily. He laughed so hard that it seemed like the insect was about to cry. The Jin Emperor and the supreme ruler of the gods also laughed crazily at this time. That hearty laughter drifted in the dark universe. Chu Yang's heart almost curled up. You know all my plans, and even know everything about me. He could only think of such a reason. Otherwise, how could everything about him fall into the enemy's control? What do you think, adopted child? Wong 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 wong. Chu Yang's entire body was shaken to the point that it almost disintegrated when he heard the words adopted son. He couldn't believe this at all. He felt as if someone had stabbed him in the back. The Ice Kuan was a spy. Adopted child was how the Ice Kuan described him. If the Ice Kuan was a spy, then everything about him was no longer a secret in the eyes of the other, so it was only logical. What was more worrisome was that this way, his parents and friends were all in the hands of the other. Chu Yang was almost in complete despair. He clenched his teeth and said, good move, truly good move. Haha. Chong laughed out loud again. Desperate? Then I'll make you even more desperate. Do you think that servant of yours is my spy? Isn't that so? Chu Yang had originally been suspicious of the Eternal Dominator, but he trusted his own instincts. Zhu Baji had also made him completely let down his guard in the end. Haha. Chong laughed even more mockingly. Chu Yang no longer held back his disdain. He sneered, how can my means be so bad? You idiot can't see it, but how can the will of the universe be so easily deceived? Chu Yang's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. What do you mean? Isn't it simple? Even if it's the will of this universe, or even the will of another universe, in my hands, they're just fools that I can play with. As for you, I've long known everything about you. I'm just taking advantage of the situation to create today's situation. As Chong spoke, he fused with the Jin Emperor and the highest overlord of the gods, turning into Chu Yang's appearance. He then licked his lips and said, I'll eat the most delicious things in this universe, and then I'll eat you, then use your aura to enter your original universe and devour it as well. What do you think? Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only did the insect have designs on this universe, but it also had designs on the universe that he was originally in. And he, Chu Yang, had become a sinner. Chapter 2644. Just how stupid are you? Have I already made myself clear? Not only did Buggy transform into Chu Yang's appearance, he was also imitating Chu Yang's voice. It was exactly the same, and Chu Yang could not tell the difference. Immediately, Chu Yang was shocked. Buggy was using the opportunity to talk with him to observe him in the most direct way, to better imitate him. Horrifying. Such a scheme was simply ingrained in his bones. Every sentence of his opponent had a clear purpose. But Chu Yang had no other choice. He asked again, can you answer me? No. Haha. With this one sentence, Chu Yang's heart was suddenly overjoyed. Almost all of his grievances were swept away, and he laughed wantonly. Your slave did not betray you, that should be your last consolation. He. Buggy's mocking laughter grew louder, but Chu Yang's laughter also grew louder. You little thing, are you stalling for time to comprehend the mystery of nothingness? Otherwise, how could you talk nonsense with an idiot like me for so long? He suddenly pointed at the other him opposite him and sneered, you deliberately attacked my mind, isn't it to hide something? If my guess is right, The situation in the deformed realm being swallowed like the great tomb is not so optimistic. Hehe, you're not stupid, but so what, you've already changed the outcome. Buggy laughed sinisterly, then closed his eyes and sat cross-legged in the universe. So, I'm so annoying when I laugh sinisterly. Chu Yang looked at the other who had turned into him. That sinister smile made him angry, but the other did not respond and directly entered a deep state of comprehension. Ignored. Buggy directly ignored Chu Yang's existence. In front of Chu Yang, he wanted to take the final step, comprehend the mystery of nothingness, and then kill Chu Yang. Fearless, incomparably arrogant. Buggy was sure that Chu Yang could not do anything to him. Chu Yang's anger soared to the sky, and he began to madly attack his opponent, but he soon found himself powerless. Like a mayfly trying to shake a tree, he overestimated himself and could not do anything to his opponent. He was even more laughable. This is a waste of time. Although I have a cultivation level, my strength is too weak. If this continues, I can only give them time and opportunity. Although Chu Yang was extremely furious, he was still very calm. He quickly thought of the divine cauldron and was about to take it out to attack the other party, but he forcefully restrained himself from doing so. Between life and death, there was not only a great terror, but also a great breakthrough. The other party had yet to comprehend the profoundness of nothingness. If he used the divine cauldron wheel to smash down, he might just fall into the other party's trap and help the other party break through. Furthermore, the divine cauldron itself was related to the profound mysteries of annulled, so it was even more likely for it to evolve into such an outcome. In an instant, Chu Yang broke out in a cold sweat. He realized why the other party was trying to provoke him. Perhaps this was the purpose of the insect. What if it isn't? Wouldn't we miss a great opportunity? Immediately, another thought popped up in his mind. When he realized his own hesitation and realized that this was a psychological game of the other party that had wasted a lot of his time, he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. What a profound scheme. He even managed to get it right. The divine cauldron was 1, and the psychological game was 2. If the first scheme did not work, then the second scheme would also waste time. In the end, he realized that all he could do was to fight for comprehension. Would the other party comprehend the profoundness of nothingness first, or would he find a way to kill the other party first? Chapter 2645. At this time, he had finally calmed down, so he wasn't stupid. He threw the problem he was facing to the entire heavenly spirit world, the entire God's world, so that they could find a solution together. In the eastern wilderness, his parents, big brother Chu Fei, big sister Chu Na, as well as little Scum, little Guari, little Five, little Six, and Bing Kuan, he didn't leave out a single one, he told them everything. One person's strength was small, but the strength of many people was enormous. One person's intelligence was lacking, but the others could make up for it. Chu Yang didn't believe that the intelligence of so many people couldn't compare to a mere insect, a mayfly. He was completely determined to kill this Yuan bastard no matter what. If he didn't kill this thing, he wasn't human anymore. Time passed silently in this battle. In the dark universe, nothing changed, it was deathly silent. Chu Yang didn't move at all. The insect didn't react either. The two continued to fight like this, and finally, at some point, the insect's body started to change. Its entire body started to become blurry, some parts of its body even started to disappear. Moreover, this situation was getting more and more violent, it was getting out of hand. The insect's head was completely gone, its neck was gone too. Its torso was also gone. In the blink of an eye, it completely disappeared, turning into nothingness. Entering the state of nothingness, the insect had finally comprehended the profound mystery of nothingness. Waraha! In the boundless darkness, in the silent universe, a loud laughter identical to Chu Yang's rang out. It was very happy. Idiot, I've won. The insect didn't hesitate and threw a punch at Chu Yang. The moment Chu Yang came into contact, Chu Yang completely disappeared, but the universe shook violently. Chu Yang was directly sent flying out of the state of nothingness. Chi Chichiao coughed out blood. Both were in the state of nothingness, both had comprehended the profound mystery of nothingness. At the same level, Chu Yang couldn't completely dodge the insect's attack, he was heavily injured in an instant. Without hesitation, He immediately entered the space-time and started to madly flee. If their realms were equal and their strength was inferior, they could only flee. Otherwise, they would only die. Idiot, do you think you're the child of the universe? Not only are you like a fish in water, but you can also use the power of this universe to suppress my speed. I can only give you one word, naive. Chong mocked sharply. I might as well tell you directly, I have once swallowed a universe, which is at least 3 times stronger than this universe. Under the situation of completely suppressing this universe, the remaining 3 times power is more than enough to kill you. As soon as it finished speaking, its figure vanished as it once again threw a punch at a certain spot in the air. Immediately, space collapsed, and Chu Yang was blasted flying once more before exploding into pieces. Blood dyed the dark universe red, but then everything vanished. Nothingness, everything was nothingness. There was no such thing as exploding, no such thing as life and death, and no such thing as being injured. During this process, Chu Yang seemed to have gained a deeper understanding of Yu Wu Wu. He even revealed himself and let Chong Lai destroy him. Worm, do you really think you've won? Bang! Chong Lai destroyed Chu Yang without any suspense. He laughed coldly. Idiot, you're still too inexperienced to play this kind of psychological game. Do you think I don't know you're heavily injured? You know I'm heavily injured, but you also know that my understanding of Yu Wu Wu has deepened. You can't kill me. Chu Yang sneered back. Haven't you always been worried about the godly cauldron? You should be worried. Me. Chong Lai sneered. Before you use the godly cauldron to gain a deeper understanding of Yu Wu Wu, you're already a dead man, idiot. Bang. 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 Chapter 2646. Tap. 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 The insect was no longer in a hurry. He walked over to Chu Yang and said disdainfully, "What's the result, you idiot? I beat you to death before you could comprehend the annulled level. You think a moron like you can fight me? Ha ha ha." Chu Yang suddenly burst out laughing. "Do you know what it means to be happy too soon, insect?" He struggled to stand up, and the corners of his mouth curved into a mocking smile. "Speaking of which, I was worried that you would find out something, so I tried my best to hide it. But it seems that you're not that great. I was simply beaten up for nothing, don't you think?" The insect was puzzled to see Chu Yang baring his 8 white teeth. But when he sent out his senses, his expression flickered. "Did you only notice now, you crappy insect?" Too late. Chu Yang laughed coldly and pointed at the insect. "I'm going to have little bastard eat you. Birds eat insects. You don't have a problem with that, do you?" While he was speaking, a strange change occurred. From the edge of the universe, rays of cosmic light pierced through and gathered straight toward Chu Yang. Finally, they entered his body. Immediately, more than a dozen virtual shadows of the universe appeared behind him. "I can't believe you can draw on the power of so many universes." Chu Yang ignored him. He teleported to the edge of the universe and threw a punch. "I'll return your words to you, insect. You're too naive to think you can escape." Rumble. Space and time exploded. When this punch struck out, the insect was shockingly sent flying out from an inexplicable space and time. It was extremely surprising. At some point, the insect had almost escaped from this part of the universe. It was simply shocking. The insect was extremely crafty, and the slightest bit of carelessness allowed him to escape. The battle between the two of them was a battle of wits, a test of wits. Just now, the insect had used Chu Yang to distract Chu Yang, and then used the Jin Emperor and the Sovereign Lord as cover. It was impossible to guard against this move. After the insect was destroyed, it did not respond at all. Chu Yang did not need it to respond. "I've never been beaten up by a bug before. If I don't kill you, I'm your grandson. Are you fucking proud of yourself? Are you trying to play IQ with me? If you are violent, I will teach you how to write violence." Chu Yang had a belly full of anger. He unleashed the 3-character scripture to vent it all as he crazily destroyed the bugs again and again. There was no suspense at all. The insect was quickly beaten to the point where it could no longer enter the state of anarchy. It was completely annihilated by Chu Yang and couldn't be more dead. In the end, his hands were empty. He chased after the fleeing Jin Emperor and the sovereign of the God world, killing them one by one with a single punch. Haha. After everything was over, Chu Yang released all the pressure in his heart. All the sullenness and grievances were vented out as he laughed heartily. In the end, he still won this battle. A just cause enjoys much support while an unjust cause finds little support. If the insect wasn't a threat to the other universes, how could he communicate with the other universes through this universe and seek help from them? How could he kill the insect in the end? This battle was known as the final battle in the heavenly spirit world and the god world. After the final battle, no one saw Chu Yang's shadow again. However, everyone knew that Chu Yang was still in this world because he was waiting for the divine fragrance girl, Shangguanlan. Little bitch, come out and eat the bugs. 30 years after the final battle, Taijing City suddenly welcomed a lively day. A childish voice suddenly resounded throughout Taijing City, causing an uproar. The god of deceit is here, the god of deceit is here. The god of deceit is back, he is digging a hole again. It must be the god of deceit. Isn't that stupid bird called Little Bitch? People surged out, but when they gathered together, they saw a 3 or 4 child wearing open-crotch pants. He was even sniffling from time to time. Little Wimp was very unhappy with the countless gazes. He angrily said, "What are you looking at? Haven't you seen such a talented child before? Do you have such a talented child in your family?" Haha. Everyone burst into laughter. "We are not looking at anything, we are here to look at the bird." Yes, 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 we are here to look at the bird. That's right, we are definitely here to look at the bird. Go back and tell your father that you are really awesome wearing open-crotch pants. TSK. Little Wimp directly pointed his middle finger at everyone and said disdainfully, "This is the right of a little wimp, you can act like a hooligan in public." You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.